she is arguably the most talked about woman on the planet. With over 300 million albums sold worldwide, she is now, quite simply, the top-selling artist of all time.
Every female pop star that has come out, they're always hailed as the next Madonna.
Her raunchy image and catchy pop lyrics have captivated fans for nearly 30 years.
That was the game changer. That was when people really were like, oh my God, who is this girl? She is going to be the biggest star on the planet.
And her controversial personal life continues to make headlines all around the world.
Can you tell us why you're adopting again, Madonna?
No.
Today, she is one of entertainment's wealthiest women.
Her ambition apparently knows no bounds.
She is the master of reinvention, a true Renaissance woman. Not content with just singing, she is also a writer, dancer, producer, director, actor, and businesswoman extraordinaire.
She went after everything she ever wanted.
She is the one and only Madonna. Madonna Louise Veronica Ciccone was born into a large immigrant family on August 16, 1958, near Detroit. Her father, Tony, was of Italian descent, and her mother, also called Madonna, was French-Canadian. Both were devout Catholics.
They grew up at a time when Michigan was, before it kind of hit the economic skids. She grew up in a relatively affluent household. She identified really early on with Black culture. She would love dancing with the Temptations and would dance with the little girls in her neighborhood, and she tells stories that, they would beat her and beat her and beat her. But all she wanted to do was dance with them, and eventually they finally were like, all right, you can do it. And that's obviously a theme of persistence that, I think the one thing that, no one can take away from Madonna, no matter how much you dislike her music, is you kind of have to respect her ambition.
She was one of 6 children. She was the third of 6, which is interesting because if you believe in anything about birth order, usually you think it's the oldest ones who are the high achievers, but she was a middle child. And maybe that had something to do with why she was so such an extrovert, and she sort of had to fight to get attention.
The kind of Catholic upbringing she had meant that it was rather strict with very enforced parameters, and there was a lot of religious symbolism in her life. Madonna said she grew up surrounded by nuns and priests who were always over at the house. And of course, we see the influences of that later on in her career.
Religion was never too far away from her image, from her lyrical themes, and from her videos as well. It got her in a lot of trouble too.
There's a lot of Catholic imagery that showed up in very subversive ways in her later work, particularly, most famously, the Like a Prayer video that ended up almost getting banned and resulted in a controversial fallout with her Pepsi deal. That video was just full of all sorts of Catholic imagery. She's making out with a black Jesus statue come to life. There's burning crosses. And in her fashion as well, the crucifixes she'd wear. She definitely was kind of like the bad Catholic girl.
To have that kind of schism, that young, where you all of a sudden are forced to question and stop believing. And that's really one of the themes that runs throughout her music. It's like, do you believe, do you not believe? Are you a virgin? Are you a whore? What's right, and what's bullshit?
Then in 1963, when she was only 5 years old, came the devastating news that would have an irrevocable impact upon the rest of her life. Her 30-year-old mother, Madonna, was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Her mother had worked as an X-ray technician. It was at a time where they didn't really have lead aprons, making it, so you'd block the radiation. She developed breast cancer while she was pregnant with Madonna's younger sister.
By the time she started treatment, it was really too late. The death of Madonna's mother, she has said over and over again, was kind of a very pivotal point in her life. Everything changed from that point on. Her father pretty quickly remarried, a woman who had actually been their house cleaner, a woman that Madonna detested and fought with throughout her childhood. I think Madonna's rebellious nature really began from that point.
By the time she was an adolescent, Madonna's subversive attitude started to shine through. It was an attitude which would emerge time and time again in her music.
What's interesting is probably a lot of people would be surprised to find out that Madonna was actually an A student, because she has this rebellious side and obviously what she went into in life, people probably thought she was someone who was always cutting class and was sort of like a truant Rizzo from Grease type of girl.
They say that she wasn't the most charismatic person in the world, which is weird because, you see Madonna now and you think of her as poised and confident and she knows what she wants, but I think when you're a teenager, it's not necessarily like that. And kind of all the things that people would say about her were, she was a dancer, she got straight A's, she went from a cheerleader to the dance team, but no one ever pegged her for stardom.
By 1977, Madonna had made it clear that she couldn't wait to get out of Michigan. New York, the mecca of art and culture, beckoned. And it wasn't long before she got the opportunity to move there on a 6-week scholarship to the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater.
She knew that she had to be in New York. It was the year the Ramones are coming out. The following year in England, the Sex Pistols blow up and everyone knows about that. And then you have the Ramones, you have the Talking Heads, you have Blondie, you have all these bands at CBGBs in New York. It's this mecca, it's cheap, it's grungy.
She got started the way a lot of, unfortunately, young women had to get started, which was, to maybe do some, photography she might not have been proud of, to do some dancing that she might not have been proud of, just really ingratiating herself in the disco and dance scenes in New York City.
By 1979, Madonna was dating Dan Gilroy from the pop-punk band Breakfast Club. And not surprisingly, it wasn't long before she joined the group.
It's pretty amazing to think, just knowing what we know about Madonna, that she actually played drums and guitar in that band.
They may have been lovers, but Gilroy didn't pull any punches when it came to Madonna.
There's a really famous quote where he just goes to her, "You're all naked ambition and no talent." And it goes again back to Andy Warhol. He was talented, but no one's gonna be like, Andy Warhol's a great painter, but he had big ideas and he knew how to wrap them in a pop format. And Madonna had the same thing.
But eventually she decided to go out on her own and move away from sort of the rock and punk thing she was doing as a sort of New York punk person and go into dance music. And she connected with Stephen Bray, who was a fellow student of hers at University of Michigan, and they went on to do a million hits, big hits, like Into the Groove and Express Yourself. He was one of her primary songwriters for years.
New York music producer Mark Kamens then helped her to get a record deal with Sire Records, and with the help of Stephen Bray, she wrote her first hit, Everybody.
Come on. Everybody, come on, dance and sing. Everybody, get up and do your thing.
Everybody is still one of my favorite Madonna songs. It's really funny because I recently read that the video she did for that song cost $1,500. I'm like, it cost that much? It looks like it cost like $5. But it's great. It's just her, and she's not even really looking as sexy as she later did. Her hair's short, it's brown. She's dressed in sort of these clothes from Newsies, these baggy, earth tone clothes. And it's just her dancing with two people in the background, as low budget as it can get, but it's like a totally compelling video, and the song is great. It's not a very deep song. It's not like a song that's going to bring about world peace, but it's just it set the template that she is great at doing these upbeat, let's throw caution to the wind, let's not give a crap about tomorrow, let's dance all night party songs. It was a perfect first single. It wasn't one of her bigger singles. I think, some of the stuff on her first album is some of the best stuff she ever did.
Everybody proved the springboard to success for Madonna, and in 1982, one of her first performances ever was filmed at the hip New York club, Danceteria.
And now, No Entiendes is proud to present the world premiere of Sire recording artist, Madonna.
Everybody, come on, dance and sing.
That was a legendary club where LL Cool J was the elevator man, the Beastie Boys and Keith Haring are dishwashers, and it would go from 8 to 8 every night in New York, and she would just dance there, and she would dance at all the gay nightclubs. She was going out every night. She was seeing these cool girls and kind of able to steal their style a little bit, and she kind of was able to mold herself into the idea of the person that she wanted to be.
Buoyed by the success of Everybody, Madonna convinced Sire to give her an album deal, and her eponymous album broke the music market in 1983. Few realized at the time that the girl with the new poppy sound would go down in history as one of music's most famous female artists.
It was a disco diva record at a time where there really wasn't a whole lot of disco music going around.
And she managed to write songs that were commercial enough, co-writing with good partners, so that they stood out as songs as well as dance chart items.
The second single off the album was Holiday, and it really put Madonna in the spotlight as a force to be reckoned with.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Holiday was Madonna's first big hit single, and it did so well that it kind of launched her because she got on the hit TV show American Bandstand with Dick Clark, which was really afternoon appointment viewing on the weekends.
And is she hot? This is Madonna.
She got a little interview with Dick.
We are a couple of weeks into the new year. What do you hope will happen not only in 1984, but for the rest of your professional life? What are your dreams? What's left?
To rule the world.
There you go. Ladies.
It was such an unusual thing to say because at that time, nobody really knew who she was. She had one hit single to her name. But looking back on it, it's certainly, it's certainly interesting and came true to some degree.
The first time I heard Madonna was on radio, Top 40 radio. It was Holiday, and I'm going to freely admit I thought she was black. I thought it was an R&B black artist. I think a lot of people thought that. They did not, when they later saw the image that she had, that she was blonde and Italian, people were surprised. Then Borderline came out, which is one of her best songs ever, and the song that broke her through. Everything was very much tied to image. I always will associate all those early Madonna songs in my mind with the video. And in that video, I actually literally found a striped hat that my mom had, and I found a bow and glued it on and put it on my head so I could have the hat Madonna had in that video.
Madonna's early pop songs, no matter whether you hate Madonna now, whether you are the biggest Madonna fan ever, you kind of can't deny those songs because still to this day, almost 30 years later, you put on Borderline, girls will dance to it. And at the end of the day, that's kind of the general barometer for pop music. If you can get girls to dance to it, you will be popular.
There was just something about her that even now is what I think I liked about her. From day one, no one told her wear rubber bracelets or dress like this or roll around the floor or, I always felt everything about her image, the way she presented herself, the songs, whether she wrote them or not, the songs she recorded and chose to record, was 100% her. I always felt she was authentic. It was completely coming from her. I was like, I want to be this person. And I think a lot of little girls wanted to be her in a way that I don't think girls necessarily wanted to be Britney Spears.
And ever courting controversy, Madonna released the provocatively titled Like a Virgin in 1985. The album launched her into the music stratosphere.
Well, Like a Virgin was a top #1 hit single for Madonna, and in the video, of course, we see her in Venice in a gondola.
Having her in the Like a Virgin garb with all of those bangles and bracelets and crucifixes and frilly clothes would have looked pretty silly over 90 or 105 minutes. But for 4 minutes, it's charismatic. And all of those image changes that she went through were perfect for 4-minute films.
I'll be yours till the end of time, 'cause you make me feel.
It's a really ambivalent song. It's just that this relationship makes me feel brand new and fresh, but Madonna in her, I guess her ability to manipulate and be controversial, use the imagery in her favor. Just the use of the word virgin set people on edge.
1985 and 1986 proved incredibly successful years for Madonna, and the hits just kept coming and coming and coming.
Material Girl is a song where Madonna, even more so than ever, really establishes control of her identity and her persona.
Some boys kiss me, some boys hug me. I think they're okay. If they don't give me proper credit, I just walk away.
If Like a Virgin was kind of Madonna renouncing her Catholic heritage, then Material Girl was Madonna kind of putting forth her credo of what she values and what's important in life. Because you'd be hard-pressed to look at Madonna's personal life and financial decisions and not say that this is a very greedy woman who really enjoys amassing tremendous wealth.
It was a subversive song, just saying, like, you know, it was the 80s where, you know, the me decade, where people, you know, greed is good. And it was still, you know, for one thing, a major hit, but it gave a lot of people a lot to talk about. There was, you know, a lot more weight to it than what were typical pop stars at the time.
Never short of admirers, Madonna had always had a preference for sexy, dark men. In the past, she had dated the likes of graffiti artist Jean-Michel Basquiat. But in 1985, she really got the gossip columnists going when she hooked up with one of the movie world's most controversial young actors, Sean Penn. Amidst a blaze of publicity, she married Penn on August 16, 1985. At the time, the couple personified all that was cool and cutting edge in Hollywood.
They become, in the nicest possible sense of the word, a freak show. Their wedding was covered by helicopter. Now, usually people are just worried about wedding crashers. You and me on the street, we get married, we don't want people to come in that we don't know. Wait a minute, we don't look to the skies.
Madonna's career continued to go from strength to strength, and true to form, she continued to shock with her latest controversial hit, Papa Don't Preach.
Papa, I knew you're going to be upset, 'cause I was always your little girl.
Papa Don't Preach was a message, an open letter, really, I think, from Madonna to her father. You know, the whole thing was about this young girl who'd sort of gotten herself in trouble sexually, gotten pregnant, and was having this argument with her dad about the fact that she didn't want to give the baby up or have an abortion. She was going to keep her baby.
Papa don't preach, I've been told it. Papa don't preach, I've been moved the street.
In 2012, you know, abortion is still a hot button topic. Some people don't want to touch it. So just imagine what it was like in the mid 80s to have a song which message was, you know, I'm keeping my baby.
I'm keeping my baby.
And it got really mixed reactions. There were family groups that praised the song, saying, okay, you know, Madonna is preaching taking responsibility, you know, not having an abortion or giving up your baby for adoption, but if you get pregnant, doing the right thing and marrying your boyfriend and raising the baby. Other people said, no, this is glamorizing teen pregnancy. She couldn't win, you know.
Says that he's going to marry me.
It's really just a Romeo and Juliet song, but she's able to kind of put it in the 80s context. She wasn't writing a, you know, a Janis Joplin kind of song. She's writing these songs that appeal to like American teenage girls.
Madonna dedicated this song to the Pope, which, as you can imagine, caused all kinds of headlines around the world. Up until now, she'd kind of been less, perhaps not subtly, but taking digs at them with Like a Virgin and some of her Catholic iconography. But this was kind of an open, all-out declaration of war.
And the video, she was very toned, and she had a different look. She'd cut off her hair, and it was very short and blonde, and she looked very sophisticated. Sort of that boy toy look that she had before was going away. It was sort of the first time we really saw Madonna have one of her million persona changes and body changes.
Madonna's wearing this very provocative black bustier and kind of bouncing around quite a bit in this sexy outfit. I was told that this is when Guy Ritchie actually started to develop a bit of a crush on Madonna, and he used to watch this video again and again and again, saying, you know, God, she's so hot. So ironically, he later ended up marrying her, but it was in that music video that he first, I think, started to kind of really fancy her.
Her movie career continued with the release in 1986 of Shanghai Surprise, co-starring her husband, Sean Penn. Penn's popularity in Hollywood had suggested that the movie would be a huge success, but the reality was very different.
Desperately Seeking Susan was a hit. It gave us the #1 song into the groove. You would have thought, wow, film career awaits. No, duds.
Shanghai Surprise, I would say that's Madonna's first lead movie, and that generally was not received very well. You know, a lot of people wanted to do whatever they could to bring Madonna down. You know, the fact that Shanghai Surprise was not a good movie at all allowed people to just kind of take their shots at Madonna.
And then a New York Times film critic, Vincent Canby, wrote the nail-on-the-head piece, which was, Madonna has already made her great films, and they are all 4 minutes long.
The movie had raised all kinds of differences, both personal and artistic, between Madonna and Sean. And it was around this time that news started to leak out that the marriage was in deep trouble.
When she got together with Sean Penn, I didn't think it was forever, because we already known that she'd been through a number of men on her rise to the top.
Sean was incredibly aggressive and violent at that point in his life. You know, Madonna has actually admitted, or it's been reported, that he tied her up at one point, threatened her with a baseball bat. There have been all kinds of unsubstantiated rumors that he hit her, that he was violent in the relationship. It was a very ugly relationship at points. And I think Madonna, who, loves to provoke, loves to probably fight in her personal relationships, was like a match to a flame when it came to Sean Penn, who had very much an out-of-control temper.
The marriage between Madonna and Sean had lasted just over 2 years. Madonna later admitted of that time, "I was completely obsessed with my career and not ready to be generous in any shape or form." Her next big hit was Like a Prayer.
Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand.
Once again, it incorporated all the religious iconography and references to her Catholic religion.
When you call my name, it's like a little prayer. I'm down on my knees. I wanna take you there.
And once again, it caused controversy everywhere.
This is an example of, she had gone from being, like a virgin performing at the MTV Awards and shocking and scaring America, or America loved her for it, and this controversial kind of icon. By 1989, Pepsi's giving her commercial deals. She's already starting to become absorbed in the mainstream. But Like a Prayer ends up having this kind of interracial video, and there's like burning crosses in the South, and there's like ideas of Ku Klux Klan.
Just like a dream, you are not what you see. Just like a prayer, no choice, your voice can take me there. I'll take you there.
Like I said, she was a provocateur. If there was any taboo, no matter what the taboo was, she would have tried to break it, whether it was right or wrong.
Here with me, it's like a dream. Let the choir sing. When you call my name, it's like a little prayer.
It was so shocking to a lot of people that Pepsi got shell-shocked and wanted to cancel the contract, and she never had anyone feeling too comfortable. And I think as her career has progressed, I think that's been the problem of why she's had trouble kind of being this figure, at a certain point, you break every single taboo, there's nothing left to shock. For the first 15 years of her career, there was nobody that could bottle up that combination of these different themes of sex and lust and rebellion and, racial mixing and all these different things that were kind of simmering in America, and she'd kind of put them out in the light. And obviously, there was political things going on beneath it, but no one had ever dealt with it in a pop forum. You couldn't ignore it. She was able to make you never be able to turn your head away, because even if it was a car crash, you'd kind of want to see what happened.
A new man was about to enter Madonna's life. And this time, he arrived in the form of one of Hollywood's greatest Lotharios, Warren Beatty. They met while filming Dick Tracy, a movie written and directed by Beatty, and their 20-year age gap became the talk of Tinseltown.
She actually did a good job, which, for the most part was kind of a disaster in a lot of ways. It was sort of the beginning of a very weird multimedia time for Madonna.
And then came the groundbreaking video for one of Madonna's most memorable songs, Vogue. And with it came yet another brand new image. It was directed by David Fincher, who would later go on to mastermind such Hollywood blockbusters as Fight Club and Social Network.
One of Madonna's greatest skills as a pop star, a mainstream pop star, is taking underground trends or things that are sort of bubbling under and turning them into the mainstream, and Vogue was one of the best examples of that. Voguing came out of the 1960s Harlem ballroom dance scene, mostly underground, mostly gay community, and she turned it into one of the biggest pop songs in 1989 or 1990, and, you know, made doing this sort of like a thing that like your grandma would do, even though she has no idea where it comes from.
Don't just stand there, let's get to it. Strike a pose, there's nothing to it.
You know, everyone knew it was 8 years after the fact that Vogue had kind of had its popularity, but, you know, I don't think the average, you know, person in middle America knew what voguing was until Madonna did it.
It was a perfect example of her with her ear picking up a frequency that most people weren't hearing and making it her own.
And it was also another continuation in terms of the video of her more glamorous, more classy look, the sort of Marilyn Monroe things she started to do, getting away more and more from the kind of crassly slutty look that she had established with her early albums.
They had a very strong black and white video, very highly stylized, and, you know, one of the best meetings of message and music in Madonna's career.
Not only does she tie it in with these themes of, you know, gay liberation, which are all kind of sublimated, and she's name dropping Ginger Rogers, Fred Astaire, you know, all these American icons.
Marlon Brando, Jimmy Dean, on the cover of a magazine. Grace Kelly, Harlow Jean.
She's bringing all these different ideas together with kind of a subversive idea beneath it, and then, you know, she's got a catchy video. And the truth of the matter is, you know, whether or not you know what voguing is, it kind of comes down to the fact that everyone remembers Madonna for being the person who vogued, because it's not necessarily who does it first. It's always kind of who does it best.
I saw her, what may have been her live peak, which was the Vogue tour. And she was just so hot that the heat of her career was in itself sexy. But she had a sense for packaging each song in a production number that was perfect for the song itself. And then they'd move to a different part of the stage and they'd do something else, and you couldn't take your eyes off it. Madonna will always have the sexiest dancers, the newest fashions, and she'll take credit for them. Not because she's being arrogant, but because everybody will give her credit for it, because they don't know who that second beautiful dancer from the left is. They'll just say it's a Madonna show.
Madonna.
1991 was another epic year for Madonna. By now, she had achieved a staggering 32 top 10 hits in the US and sold more than 70 million albums internationally, generating an incredible $1.2 billion in sales. That same year, she also founded her own label, Maverick Records, with Time Warner, and brought out a greatest hits album called The Immaculate Collection. A documentary about her Blind Ambition tour also got the critics talking once again. In America, it was called Truth or Dare. In the rest of the world, it had the provocative title, In Bed with Madonna.
I just think life is unfair. Like, here I am, this person, everybody thinks I have everything I want, right? But I want you and I can't have you.
It was the Truth or Dare movie where it was one of the first times where she went to her mother's grave, you know, since she was a little girl. And if you really want to mark Madonna's career up into paths or into, you know, spheres, 1991 is kind of where she makes the sharp break. You know, she released the Immaculate Collection that year, and I think you could probably make a case that that was when she finally had gotten maybe the first bit of degree of peace with, you know, her mother's passing.
I never really understood
why she was taken away from us. It just seemed so unfair. I never thought that she had done something wrong, so oftentimes I'd wonder what I'd done wrong.
She never wants to leave. She never wants to live any of her life with the cameras off. If it was ideal, she'd have the cameras on at all times. And they talk about her early shows, you know, she was one of the first ones to realize that she would let the audience be the peeping Tom.
The documentary film also highlighted Madonna's free-thinking attitude towards sexual stereotypes, revealing her bisexual relationship with another woman.
Andy, I don't like her.
I don't either. Believe me, it's sickening.
I don't like any of the people I sleep with either, so what difference
Well,
does it
that's
make?
why you sleep with them, because they're hideous.
It's very interesting that Madonna didn't get more of a reputation for being bisexual. She famously hung out with Sandra Bernhardt as a gal pal. But that's because she went through so many people that inevitably a couple of them were going to be women.
As if the documentary hadn't been provocative enough, a year later, Madonna really went for gold in pushing the boundaries when she published a highly controversial softcore pornographic coffee book featuring her in various blatant erotic poses. The book, called Sex, sold 150,000 copies on its release day in the USA alone. 3 days later, all 1.5 million copies of the first edition were sold out worldwide, making it the most successful coffee table book of all time.
The one thing I would say that she ever did controversial that hurt her career, what I'd say would be the sex book, which was just stupid and ridiculous. I will come out there and say it.
Nobody would have said, hey, let's make a $150 coffee table book of explicit photos. I mean, nobody said that to any pop star ever. Can you imagine anybody saying that to Barbra Streisand?
To me, I was like, what are you doing? Like, it's one thing to be sexual in your videos, to be sexual in your song lyrics, but when you're actually doing a softcore porn book where you're posing naked with Vanilla Ice, and Big Daddy Kane and Naomi Campbell.
I'm proud to buy it. I'm not ashamed.
Once again, you have to realize this was 1991, let's say. People were more easily shocked then than they were now.
She had the sense of how far she could take it, because this could have potentially been a career ender. And then she knew intuitively when to cut it. And she let the book go out of print.
It came out, coincided with what I think is one of her weaker albums, Erotica, which again was just so hammering you over the head with the sex thing. There was just something about that I thought seemed very desperate and very, just trying too hard and silly and just trying to shock, like, ooh, look how shocking I am.
By now, even some of her most ardent fans believed Madonna had gone one step too far with her overtly sexual image. And for about 5 years, she went under the publicity radar. But then, in 1996, came the momentous news that she had given birth to a baby girl called Lourdes, whom she had with her lover and personal trainer, Carlos Leon.
Madonna had said numerous times she wanted to have a baby with a Latin man, a Puerto Rican particularly, because she thought they would make beautiful babies together.
As if the birth of her daughter weren't headlining enough, news also broke in 1996 that Madonna had landed one of the most coveted roles in show business, that of Eva Perón, in the movie version of the smash hit musical Evita. She said at the time, "I am prouder of Evita than anything else I have ever done."
Madonna's not going to go down history as being a great actress, but occasionally she gets married to the right part, and the reason why Desperately Seeking Susan worked well for her is because she was basically playing a variation of herself. And some people could say with Evita she sort of was too, this very ambitious woman who came from nothing, who is determined to make something of herself. Some would say, you know, Madonna has used men or used her feminine wiles to get ahead.
Evita was the great musical hit on stage of the late 70s. And for some reason, the film didn't get made, even though an entire generation of star females were mentioned for the part and seriously considered.
In the film, she plays Evita Perón, the wife of Juan Perón, leader of Argentina. And this is a role that she'd always kind of wanted. And obviously she found, I'm sure, tons of emotional connection with a woman that kind of got everything that she wanted.
I was extremely passionate about it. I knew that it was a chance for me as an actress and a singer to do things I had never done before and to push myself and to grow.
It won't be easy. You'll think it's strange.
Doing Don't Cry for Me, Argentina, from the balcony of the Casa Rosada, she was charismatic.
Don't cry for me, Argentina. The truth is I never left you.
That was her first big film success, kind of her only major film success, but I think it proved that she was able to have that versatility, and she was able to kind of get in the mind of a very, very powerful woman who would stop at nothing to succeed. So it's obviously a huge stretch. But
I think it's an incredible role for any actress to play, and I felt that I could completely understand her compassion and her ambition and all the things that she experienced.
I love you and hope you love me.
I just feel that what's happening to me is a perfect example of you know, if you just keep on going and you put your mind to something, you can achieve anything.
Look at me to know that every word is true.
Not long after Lourdes' birth, Madonna joined Kabbalah, a religion reflecting the more esoteric aspects of Judaism. Her Kabbalah name is Esther, and to this day she remains a firm believer. In 1998, she released an album called Ray of Light, which proved a real departure from her.
Zephyr in the sky at night, I wonder.
Once again, it proved a whole new chameleon-like reinvention of her image.
That was a real change of pace because it wasn't so much a pop album as it was an attempt to kind of negotiate with the electronic music that was going on at the time. For most people in the music industry, electronica, that catch-all was seen as the next big thing.
it was structured like a dance record. And she's somebody who really, as even dance music continues to thrive in 2012, it's probably the biggest it's ever been. Madonna was the first one. She was the one that kind of was able to do it in a way with more style than anybody had and more visual flair. She was the first one to get that it wasn't enough to just be a good singer, not to have good songs. You had to be an icon. If you wanted to survive, you had to become not just a conversation at the dinner table. You had to be like the conversation at the dinner table.
She won 4 Grammys for Ray of Light, including Best Video. Amazingly, it was the first time in Madonna's long career that the Grammys had recognized her.
I've been in the music business 16 years. This is my first Grammy, and well, actually, I've won 4 tonight, but it's worth the wait and all that.
The video was directed by Swedish director Jonas Åkerlund, and it also won the MTV Video of the Year.
You want to know if I was difficult to work with?
No, it was great.
That same year, Madonna's constant reinvention continued when she married British film director Guy Ritchie. She moved from Los Angeles to London and later gave birth to their son, Rocco John.
I'm looking for a place to live in London, but only because I go there so much, I work there so much, I can't stand staying in hotels, and, so it'd be kind of like a second home. I don't think it would be my primary home.
Witty dialogue.
For a while, she seemed content with London life, even writing a children's book called The English Roses. Bizarrely, this one-time sex siren now started to promote an image of a more wholesome English mother, even adopting something of a British accent along the way.
And how much do you enjoy being married?
Love it.
Best thing I've ever done.
Thank you.
She'd reinvented herself as this English rose, writing a children's book, you know, talking about baking bread and staying at home, wearing these like day dresses. It's absolutely ludicrous.
The problem with the English roses was that they were all a little bit jealous of a little girl in the neighborhood.
I tried out all the stories on my children, and whenever they got bored and started fidgeting or, you know, complaining or looking for other things to do, I knew I had to fix that part of the story again.
It's like Madonna thinks that the rest of us have such short memories that nobody remembers the whole S&M stuff from before, and we're happily ready to accept her as this, you know, English rose. Now, of course, what we see more recently is another reinvention, kind of something in the middle. She still wants to be sexy, she wants to prove that she can be 53 and she can rock a bodysuit, but at the same time, she's not quite as seedy and naked as she used to be. I think Kabbalah has played a large role in some of the images we've seen of Madonna, as she's kind of dabbled, at one time very, very deeply involved in the religion. I think lately perhaps a bit less so. We've seen the kind of influences of having a spiritual life and how that has affected her in terms of her public image.
She went on to write several more children's books, including Yakov and the Seven Thieves.
So my throat is a bit sore, and I'm supposed to actually not be talking very much because I have a concert tomorrow. So Lola has volunteered to read the story to you.
Once upon a time, that rose before him in the distance.
In 2003 came Madonna's 9th studio album, American Life. With only 4 million sales, it was the lowest-selling album of her career, and a few less successful singles emerged later.
She had a couple of huge flops. American Life was, you know, first and foremost, you know, the biggest flop of them all. You know, that's the song where she tries to rap, and it went about as well as you might imagine.
I'm drinking a soy latte, I get a double shot it goes through my body and you know I'm satisfied.
Madonna's 10th album, Confessions on a Dance Floor, was released in 2005.
Confessions of a Dance Floor from 2005 was probably, in my opinion, the last great Madonna record. We'll see how the new one is, but that was, I think, her last real great record. And in a way, it was a full circle achievement. American Life had been, you know, kind of a misstep of her trying to be all political, and she got back to actually what she did in the beginning, her dance roots, her danceteria roots. I think her last great single was Hung Up, which sampled Gimme, Gimme, Gimme a Man After Midnight by ABBA. Brilliantly sampled that.
You know, at that point, she had kind of gotten a reputation as being very, very self-serious. And Confessions on a Dance Floor it was designed to be similar to a DJ mix. And Hung Up was one of her biggest hits in a long time. It was a #1 song, I believe, in 40 plus countries, which made it the most widespread #1 single in pop history.
In 2006, Madonna hit the headlines once again when she funded an orphanage in Malawi, East Africa, and went on to adopt a boy from the country. His name was David Banda. 2008 proved another momentous year for the goddess of pop. Not all of it good. Things were not going well in the Richie household.
Madonna and Guy fought a lot. They had a very difficult relationship, and I've actually been around them when they were fighting. And what was interesting was the way that they fought was very much the way like 14-year-old boys would fight, like, no, you're stupid, no, you're stupid. It was the most adolescent dynamic I have ever seen in a relationship in my life. I think what drew Madonna to Guy was, you know, like a lot of strong women, she was looking for someone who was her equal, who matched her, who wasn't intimidated by her. And I think Guy's very English upbringing allowed him to be very reserved and certainly not to show visibly that he thought she was cool or impressive. Madonna was really drawn to that. I think Guy mirrored a lot of her own father's demeanor and behavior in the sense that he was cold, he was remote, he didn't give praise easily. Madonna was very attracted to that, but later, of course, I think she felt very hurt by the fact that he wasn't more supportive or more complimentary of her efforts.
That same year, Madonna had to face the release of a New York Times bestseller written by her brother and once close confidant, Christopher Ciccone. Called Living with Madonna, it revealed some unsavory stories about her. But despite all this, Christopher remained adamant that he held no ill will towards his sister.
There's no venom in this book, none whatsoever. I have to face myself every day when I wake up and look at myself in the mirror, and I do that with, I can do that with honor and respect held intact.
It became clear from the book and his subsequent interviews that there was no love lost between Christopher and Madonna's husband, Guy Ritchie.
I don't dislike Guy Ritchie. He disappoints me as a human being, but I don't dislike him, It's my sister's husband, and I have no intention of getting in between that. As far as him being a wedge between us, his insecurities led him to behave a certain way with me. We were very close, her and I, and that was not an easy thing for him. Is he homophobic? Probably. But I think the combination of what I was to my sister, connected with the way that I have sex, was difficult for him to deal with. And, it was, as Rupert Everett said, sort of, me or him.
Not long after the book's release, Madonna announced that she and Guy were officially divorcing after 8 years of marriage. Throughout the pain of Madonna's divorce, Lourdes, or Lola as she's now known, became even closer to her mother.
No! Madonna was always a very active mother and a very strong mother, but then I think as she went through her divorce from Guy Ritchie, she began to depend more and more on her then, I think, 12 or 13-year-old daughter. Their relationship now definitely resembles more two girlfriends than it does mother and daughter. And if you look at Lola's life, she's growing up so fast. She has a clothing range, a clothing line. She had a cameo in her mother's movie We. She's been in Madonna's music video. She's at a performing arts school. She clearly wants to be a performer, and it looks like Madonna is almost morphing from this performer herself into probably the stage mother from hell. But she's getting to kind of vicariously, I think, relive some things through Lourdes.
As she approached her 50th birthday, Madonna found herself in Malawi's high court defending claims that she had flaunted the adoption laws in the country over David Banda.
I went to Malawi in Africa thinking that I was going to save children's lives and make a big difference in their lives, and I was going to affect change in their lives, and hopefully I have. But the surprise to me was how much they changed me. This adoption essentially was the beginning of the creation of adoption laws in Malawi. Up until this time, there wasn't an adoption law. So consequently, I'm sort of the template or the role model, so to speak, for future adoptions.
But she won the case and later went on to adopt another Malawi child, Mercy James.
It was a tough time for me, I won't lie, because just the whole adoption period, going through the bureaucracy of it and everything was exhausting. And then, to have to go there and see the palpable suffering of the children and to feel like you were doing something good, and then to come home to everyone screaming and outraged and accusing you of kidnapping and all that, it hurt, I have to say, but time has gone by and I can look back at it and say, well, people didn't understand, and often people jump to conclusions when they're not educated and they don't know what's going on. And I knew eventually that people would understand the story, and obviously I had to go through that as well, so it all worked out okay in the end.
How does it feel to be back in Malawi, Madonna?
Amazing.
That same year, Madonna released a third greatest hits album, Celebration, which became her 11th #1 album in the UK. She now tied with Elvis Presley as the solo act with most #1 albums in the country. In 2011, Madonna stepped back into the movie business, this time as a co-writer-director on WE. It told the story of American divorcee Wallis Simpson, who brought the British monarchy to its knees when she won the heart of King Edward VIII, and he was forced to abdicate. The movie received mixed reviews.
Basically, all the reviews have been universally bad, apart from the fact that they've said, in terms of the artistic direction, basically like she was making a music video, it looks good. But everything else, the script, how the movie flows, there's a lot of anachronistic stuff where stuff from out of time, you know, you've got Wallis Simpson dancing to some punk song from The Cure, stuff like that Madonna thought was very edgy, has been universally reviled by critics.
Today, despite her increasing years, Madonna's live performances are legendary.
As a live performer, she is fantastic. I had the privilege of going to a very small concert she held, and I was in a VIP area standing next to Guy Ritchie, and we were very close to the stage. And at the time, she was fantastic. A lot of energy. She really commands the room. In fact, she reminded me of Oprah Winfrey in a strange way, because I've been in a situation with Oprah as well, and she just has to stand there and say anything banal, and the whole audience is riveted. Madonna has that same commanding presence. They remind me of each other. And she just had the audience in the palm of her hand from the minute she came on stage.
Her most recent live performance was at the Super Bowl in 2012, where she wowed an audience of over 114 million viewers with her highly energetic and ever raunchy routine.
I thought Madonna's performance at the Super Bowl was a great spectacle. It was a great show, which is what Madonna is famous for. If you looked at the way the stage was lit and all kinds of, amazing graphics and visuals and dancers and choreography, it was very well done.
There was, for example, this man on a tightrope. There's a particular name for what he did, and he's the first person to get national television doing that, because she was clever enough to spot, this is new. Get him to do this tightrope thing, dance on a tightrope. She knew that MIA was of a different ethnicity, so that would expand the audience, as Nicki Minaj did. And she knew she was controversial, because that's how MIA became famous in the United States, was through her controversy.
Give me all your love, boy. You can be my boy, you can be my boy toy. In the nick of time, I can say a second rhyme, cause it's time for change like a Nickelodeon.
She had Nicki Minaj, she had MIA there. Those are her hand-picked kind of children. It was kind of a slap in the face. I think Lady Gaga, and I'm sure Katy Perry would have killed to have had that. But it's interesting that Madonna picked Nicki Minaj and MIA, and I think if you really want to study her career, that's not surprising at all, because she identified all the stuff that she was taking was from African-American, Caribbean culture. She was taking all these different things, and you have somebody like MIA who's originally from Sri Lanka, and her dad was a Tamil Tiger. She was a rebel, and she's flicking off the camera, whether that was planned or not. You have Nicki Minaj, who's from Queens. She's a rapper. She's a girl. And she's still stealing everything. Everyone steals everything from Madonna. If you saw Nicki Minaj's recent Grammy performance, she's going against a Catholic church. And the funny thing about it was everyone, there's a priest there, and she's playing on all these different themes, and she's going wild, and she's doing these sexual things, and you're supposed to be like, oh my God, that's so awful. But it's not awful, because, everyone saw that 20 years ago.
When MIA, gave the middle finger, it really irritated Madonna. And, she said she felt it was unnecessary, the energy had been so positive. But let's be honest, that's not the reason. The reason it irritated Madonna is that people were talking about that obscene gesture the next day instead of Madonna's performance. If anybody's gonna shock, if anybody's gonna provoke, it has to be her. If you looked at her alone, the voice, some of the dance moves, the fact that she was actually holding cheerleading pom-poms at one point was a little bit silly. I think there is a fine line between being an older woman and being a fantastically sexy performer and looking ridiculous. And I think at points, she carried it off, when she came in as the gladiator. But then at other points, when she was a cheerleader, it did look a little bit silly.
Nonetheless, it put her single into the top 10 for the first week.
Incredibly, her latest album, MDNA, reached #1 in 43 countries through iTunes pre-order before it was even released.
First of all, the title MDNA is amazing. It's a very clever title, and it also gives a nod to rave culture and shows that she's, again, going in a dancey direction. And Give Me All Your Lovin' is the new single. It has MIA and Nicki Minaj.
I see you coming and I don't wanna know your name. You, me, Madonna.
Madonna's very good about surrounding herself with people that are young and cool and will get her attention. She's done duets with Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, people like that.
It was a way for her to just kind of reestablish, like, hey, I am still, the queen of all this stuff.
Ever contentious, Madonna's love life continues to fascinate an ever-greedy and voracious media. Most recently, she's been linked with much younger men, like 26-year-old Brazilian model Jesus Luth and 25-year-old Brahim Zaibate.
You name a big male star of the late 20th century, and Madonna probably had some affiliation with him in some way, and if not, then he wanted it, because she took men like trophies.
Despite being the most famous woman in the world, Madonna still manages to lead a fairly private personal life. So what is she really like?
When you meet Madonna, the first thing that strikes you and kind of shocks you is how little she is. She has this larger-than-life persona and this huge, iconic reputation. And so when you see this woman who's barely 5'4", this tiny little figure, you find it hard to believe that so much power came out of such a small being. Madonna is not particularly warm or friendly. There's kind of a frostiness about her, and you have to work for it, to get her approval. She's notoriously hard on people. She expects her staff to be available to her at all hours, day or night, for whatever she needs or desires. Additionally, she expects them to be in good shape. She expects everyone to take care of themselves or else. But at the same time, I don't think her standards are any less for herself than they are on other people. She's a classic perfectionist, and she demands that kind of stuff from everyone around her.
Another thing about Madonna was she was never into drugs. She never really drank. She would drink a ginger ale, and I think people thought she was weird. And I think it probably strikes back to the fact that she never wanted to be out of control. She never wanted to feel weak or imperiled. And when you drink or you smoke, it's to lose yourself. And I think the story of Madonna is somebody who loves herself.
I know someone who had a meeting with Madonna not too long ago, and she arrived in her pajamas. She just doesn't care. Another thing about Madonna is a lot of people don't realize all her friends and family, they never call her Madonna. It's always M. So it'll be like, well, where's M? What time is M getting home? Are you at M's house? It's kind of her personal nickname. Madonna actually doesn't really like the Madge nickname. That came from the British tabloids, Her Majesty. I've been told she actually hates it. I'm quite positive that although she's called that frequently in the press, nobody would dare to call her that to her face.
People have been wondering what the future holds for Madonna forever. I remember when she turned 30, people were like, how long can she keep doing this? When she turned 40, it was like, come on, you're already 40. Can she still keep doing this? Now 50's behind her. She's 53 years old, and she's about to release another album, and she already has a song that's a top 40 song, and she's collaborating with Nicki Minaj. What does the future hold for Madonna? I don't think she's ever gonna stop.
At the end of the day, I love fancy clothes and sparkling diamonds and parties and dressing up and, all of those things, but I don't need them to be happy, and I never did.
You will never stop trying to be the best. You will never stop trying to stay on top. Her ambition apparently knows no bounds. I don't see Madonna ever stopping until nobody wants to go see her anymore. Her tickets, very controversially for her new tour, is something like $300. And when she was asked, how do you justify in this economy, asking this kind of prices? And she said, simply, I'm worth it. And I think as long as she has that kind of confidence, that kind of self-belief, and that kind of, incredible ability to captivate a room, she's gonna keep going.